Welcome. You're listening to My Magical Horse, the podcast, where we are getting curious about animal communication. I am your host, Jordan Banks, and if you are desiring a more magical connection with your own horse, you are in the right place. Join us as we rediscover our sense of wonder, experience the joy, and feel the magic that horses can and do bring to our lives each and every day. We are so excited to have you here. Thank you for spending your time with us. Now let's get started. Welcome back to My Magical Horse, the podcast. Today I am here with my friend Jennifer Johnson. Jen and I met at the Elements of Connection, and it was an incredible experience. After I had just divulged like my deepest, darkest trauma, and there was like this silence. She got up and gave me a hug, and I will never forget it. Thank you for for that. And anyway, we've kept in touch and unknowingly ended up both signing up for the Intuitive Equestrian course with Felicity
Yep.
Davies. So that was a surprise to see her there, and then had actually kind of a special experience in that first little meditation we did with her. But anyway, I just wanted to welcome you, Jen, and thank you for being here. And wanted to just have you maybe give a little introduction to the people listening about who you are and kind of how you've shown up in the horse world before we dive into animal communication and your experiences with that.
Sure. So I was fortunate enough to get my first horse at 12. My dad was very nervous when the boys started calling. So he decided to keep me busy. He would get me a horse.
Mm.
And of course, if I had a horse, then I also needed to work. So I, did my duty at the barn, cleaning stalls, taking care of horses and what have you, because it was all about horses. And here I am, 56. All these years later, and I'm still working to pay for my horses. So,
Yeah,
um,
me
I,
too.
yeah, right. I think we all are. I think that's just across the board. It's a known thing.
Yeah.
I have had Arabians my entire existence, and have shown amateur. I'm by no means a professional. I have a big girl job in the IT world and have been doing that for the last 30 plus years.
Mhm.
Um, but I have competed in Western dressage, Western pleasure, saddle seat. I even did an extreme cowboy race with my saddle seat mare,
Wow.
which was super fun. She was awesome. She rocked it. She totally rocked it. It was very cool.
Wow.
And have done some competitive trail rides and that sort of thing. But I have stepped away from the competitive world at this point in time, just because it's all for me now. Especially it seems like Elements of Connection were just, that whole clinic was such a tipping point for
Mhm.
me in so many different ways. And I had already been really going down a path of really listening to my gelding bear. And I had, I worked with a couple of different people in different areas. So Charlotte Cannon, I don't know if you guys are familiar with her. She's awesome and does a bunch of amazing, amazing work. And I had started kind of doing her self-study class and some of those type of things just to try to understand my horse more. Because basically what had happened is in 21, I moved to Colorado from Michigan, and I had I had actually moved to Colorado like in July, and Bear stayed back in Michigan because we had decided to take him to Western Dressage World Championship that year. He had qualified, so we were going to go do that. And instead of schlepping him all the way from Michigan to Colorado and then go back to Oklahoma, he stayed in Michigan with my dear friend Liz, and she kept him fit and was working with him and that sort of thing. So I kind of flew back and forth a few times to keep riding. And after the show in September, end of September, he came home to Colorado with me. So it was probably first week in October. I was fortunate enough to be at a private ranch there with a friend I knew through Western Dressage. The interesting part about this ranch is that they also have a nonprofit organization that they do work with anybody and everybody who has been through any kind of trauma. So mainly focused around military vets, foster kids in the foster program or foster world there in Colorado Springs, as well as human trafficking victims.
Wow.
And even we actually did a whole tranche of work with a bunch of homeschool kids, so that was really cool. But in the beginning, Bear, of course, is just trying to settle, and of course, Colorado is very different from Michigan, and just adjusting to the altitude, adjusting to the different environment, and then of course the way that horses are kept in Colorado is generally very different than how we would keep them in Michigan. So
How so? Like, what's different about that?
well, there's not a lot of pasture. It's not very green. It's very arid and dry, right? So it's not like there's just all of this pasture. So what pasture you do have, you really have to manage and rotate and what have
In
you.
Colorado.
Exactly.
Okay.
Unless you have a huge piece of property. So, that's also possible as well. But those places are very few and far between. So I had Bear, with me in Colorado for a few weeks. And then I actually ended up having to go to Europe for a business trip. So I think I was gone almost 3 weeks. So when I returned home and of course went out to the barn to see him, to the ranch to see him, he basically like threw up on me. And it was like all of this trauma is pouring off of him. And I was like, oh my gosh, what happened? And it's
Like
like,
energetically or like,
oh yeah, oh yeah. It was crazy. I mean, when I got there, he was like, it was like, help me, help me, help me, help me. And I'm like, I don't even know what happened. So did somebody hurt you? Did you get hurt? Did you have some kind of, I had no idea what it was. And so of course it's not something of course the gal that was taking care of him, she was beside herself. He had lost weight. I mean, it was just it was crazy. And I did not know what to do, right? So it's not like you call a body worker or you call a chiropractor or you call a vet, right? Type of a thing. I have been using homeopathic remedies with my animals since like 2010. So, I gave him a couple of things to try to help with, what seemed to be trauma to me, but it didn't even seem to cut it.
hmm.
So, I reached out to a friend of mine named Lauren, who is an animal communicator. And so this would have been like December of 2021. Yes, 2021.
2021. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So
wait, you were already friends with her?
I was friends. Well, you know what? She was kind of part of the group within I told you about I had mentioned Charlotte Cannon.
Oh
So
yeah.
she was part of the group that was it's kind of horse girl me type of a thing,
Mm.
great group. Jenny Rowland is awesome. She's awesome. So I was kind of following along in that group on Facebook. And so Lauren is part of that group and I had met her through there and what have you. So I reached out to her and I said, you know what, Lauren? Well, first off, let me say this. I was raised very not strict, but I was raised I was raised in a Christian home. And so we were very, we were very faithful, going to church all the time and that sort of thing.
Mm.
So I had a relationship with the Lord for my entire life. And here I am. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to call an animal communicator. And of course, I know Lauren, and she's precious and she's wonderful and she's awesome. She's an awesome animal communicator. But of course, I'm like, okay, Lord, is it okay for me to do this? Am
Yeah.
I doing
Yeah.
something bad? I don't want to
You
do
did.
anything bad.
You weren't sure. You weren't
Yeah,
sure.
exactly. Well,
Yeah.
because it's interesting now because of course I have a completely different perspective, 3.5 years, almost 4 years later. And um it's a gift. I mean, it
Right.
really is a gift. It's a gift, and it's something that I think any and all of us have. I think it's part of what God puts inside of us. It's do you know how to be? Do you know how to be still? Are you aware? Are you self-aware? And it's like once you start going down that personal journey for whatever reason, people go down it for a lot of different reasons. But once you kind of start going down that path, which I had started to do with because a lot of Charlotte's work, it's all about holding space. And I
Mm.
remember asking her to define holding space because I'm like, I don't even know what that means. What does holding space mean? Right?
I didn't know either in the beginning.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? And how she described it was it is having the patience to wait.
Mm.
And of course, it was in relationship to your horse. But holding space applies to any relationship in your entire life, in your entire existence, right? It's not just with your horse. And once you start to kind of go down this path, it's amazing the people that start to come into your life and frequencies shift, paradigms shift, things just start to kind of change up. And it's interesting because it's like you just become more awake. I call it my awakening. I mean, it's really, really the truth. It's like I woke up. So anyway, let's go back to talking reaching
Yeah.
out to Lauren, right? I'm like, Lauren, something has happened with my horse and it's like I don't know who else to talk to. It's like I need to have a session with him, I think, to find out what's going on and what have you. So she was like, absolutely, I would love to be able to, spend some time with you guys and what have you. So I had my first session with the animal communicator, who's also my friend. Um, and that session absolutely blew my hair back. The things that he told me, it was like I already knew them.
Mm.
So it wasn't just having a connection and speaking to him, connecting with him. It was also looking back on like the very first day that I met him. So I kind of have this romantic fairy tale story with him anyway. I was living in Europe at the time, and Bear is a Polish Arabian. He was bred in Poland.
Mm.
His mother was reserve national champion of Poland in 2007, I think it was. And in 2009, she was purchased by Shirley and Charlie Watts. Charlie Watts, you might know, who was the previous drummer for the Rolling Stones.
Oh,
So every time I hear a Rolling Stone story, or song, I'm always, thank you, Charlie. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
wow.
Because I would not have Bear if it were not for the Wattses. And so they
Mm.
had purchased his mother in 2009 at the Polish Ovation sale in Poland. And she was in foal with Pinero, with Bear. So
Wow.
he ended up at Halsden Arabians, where he was born, which is in Devonshire, in the UK, almost to Cornwall, way far west. Beautiful, magical, amazing place. I think the day I went to go, well, when I went to go meet him, because I was then invited by Shirley. So I have an amazing cousin. Some of you may know him, Scott Benjamin. Scott and I have been best buddies since we were little kids. We're both crazy about Arabian horses. He just grew up and did something with it. He's actually an international Arabian horse judge
Oh,
and
wow.
travels all over the world, running shows, helping people with their breeding programs and what have you. He actually lived in Poland for 5 years during his college years. And so he was very integrated into the Polish Arabian world. So if I'm famous, it's just because it's my cousin who's famous, not me. But he's the
Wow.
one who helped me find Bear because he introduced me to Shirley.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You
So,
bought him from the UK? Is that what
did
you
Bear
did?
fly?
You went and
Well,
bought him in the UK?
I did. So at
Oh,
the time I was living in Germany.
okay.
I was living in Germany, so I flew to the UK all by myself, very brave, driving on the wrong side of the road, flattened my tire within the first 30 minutes. So I was driving around on a donut like the whole weekend, which was hilarious. But anyway, um, so I actually imported Bear. He lived with me for about a year in Germany. And then when I came home to the States in 17 to take a new job, he came home with me then.
Mm,
So he's been here with me the last 8 years.
okay.
So
So
yeah.
when Lauren, was it Lauren? You said
Yes.
that
So
connected with him?
back to animal communication. Yep.
Yeah, I know. I mean, if you don't mind sharing anything, whatever she said that was so profound or significant to you, if there's any of that that you want to share.
Sure, 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 sure. Well, Bear is he is a healer. He is an empath. And basically, along with other very beautiful things, basically that first session, I realized that he basically was, and and of course now I know he's done this with me. We always talk about how horses mirror you.
Hmm.
But he also, being an empath, absorbs things off of me and had for so long. And being in that farm, being at that ranch where you had these different folks coming in to work with the horses, from a trauma perspective. Here he is, the pretty bay Arabian. He's the first horse in the barn when you come in, and so everybody would come over and want to touch his face. So when they're going to touch his face, he's absorbing all this stuff off of them, right?
Hmm.
And of course, the other horses there were part of the healing program and all of that. And Bear wasn't for the first, was it even the first year? It was probably the first, well, 22, 23. Yeah. So for the first few months, obviously he wasn't part of it, but he made it very clear that he wanted to be part of the team. So
Mm-hmm.
that was part of it, is he wanted to be part of the healing team, but he also needed help in being able to release the trauma because he did not know how to do that. So
Okay.
what I felt pouring off of him was all of this trauma that he had absorbed. And then he was like, oh, great. Now what do I do
I
with
don't know
it?
what to do with this. Here, you take it. Oh,
So that's why it
wow.
was, that's why it was really scary for me, because all of a sudden, I mean, I knew him, I had him for, you know, 6 years at that point in time. And so I knew him well, and I knew that that wasn't him.
Yeah,
Right.
like you're like, this is not the horse that I left here.
Right. That's why I was like, who did this? What did somebody do to you? Why are you like this, kind of a thing? So
So, did the animal communicator help him learn how to ground that trauma, like to release the trauma back into the ground, or what did that look like?
no, so actually what we did is, okay, I'm gonna say this because there's so many
Okay.
there's like so many facets to who and what I am now through all
Yeah.
of this. And that was like, it was like the door opened and then I just like went full hog into the door, through the door.
Yeah.
So I knew that I needed to find somebody to help me with the processing. So how
Hmm.
how do I help him process? So Lauren was also doing like a book club in this group of girls and everything with Charlotte and with Jenny.
Mm.
And they were reading Sacred Spaces by Dr. Susan
Mm.
Fay,
Okay.
which highly recommended. If you haven't read it, definitely get it. It's on. She's also has it on Audible, so you can listen to it if you do that as well. So Lauren had suggested maybe reach out to her, and I think she does sessions and what have you.
Mm. Okay.
So the next morning, I think it was like on a Friday. So the next morning, Saturday morning, I got up to do my devotions and my meditation, and that's a practice I've had decades, right? That's just kind of, it's part of who and what I am. And, kind of, it's my way of grounding myself and everything in the morning and just kind of getting myself aligned before I go out into the world. And I was sitting in my chair doing that the next morning, and all of a sudden in pops Bear.
Mm.
And he said to me, "I've known you for 1,000 years."
Wow. And then, yeah, how did you react to that? Just,
What?
yeah.
What does that mean? And he said, "Think about the day that you met me at Halston." So I went back to that day that I described to you guys in Devonshire, in this beautiful farm. I mean, just
Mhm.
amazing place. And when I walked into that barn, he was in a stall, and he was in the back of the stall. And there were some other people kind of walking around or whatever. Um, but as I kind of came around the corner, he saw me, and he came from the back of the stall and came directly to me. And I realized that he recognized me.
Mm.
He recognized me.
Wow.
It's like he was waiting for me to come because he knew I would come to find him. And when I walked in there, he knew me. And of course, I'm living the life fantastic. I don't even know, I'm like, I have no idea. Living in darkness, right? Kind of a thing. And the rest of the morning then that I spent with him there, and I rode him, and then just spent time with him. I actually have a video where he is totally connecting with me. Now I know what it is, right? At that point, I didn't know what it was, but he was like sucking on my hand.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
And, you know, it was, it blew me out of the water because I was like, "Oh, look how sweet," because I'm thinking, "Oh, look how sweet you are." And, "Oh, aren't you lovely? And you're so pretty." And, all of these things. And, fast forward to 21, he was like, "I was trying to reach out to you and tell you it was me."
Wow. Wow. Oh, that's so touching.
So the thing that is super interesting about that is that connection thing that he does,
Mhm.
that was actually why I had started reaching. It was actually part of kind of this overflow of trauma
Mm.
when all of this was happening. He would just, it was like, "I need you, I need you, I need you, I need you." And I'm like, okay, did he have like traumatic birth? Did his mother ignore him? Did she reject him? Because then then you kind of, you start thinking like a human, and you're like, okay, people who have issues, mommy issues, or whatever kind of thing, they're very clingy, and that's kind of what it felt like to me, but I
Mm.
didn't know what it was. So that was kind of what took me down this path with starting to, work with Charlotte and everything, because it was all about getting horses out of your space and allowing them to release their energy. So this was it was interesting because it all kind of played, it's interesting because it all kind of plays in together.
Yeah.
Um, so with that, I realized that he doesn't do that all the time. That
Mm.
is not like a normal thing. I'm thinking it was obviously the first day I met him, but it's not. And it's very specific times that he will do that, when there's a connection that is needed, or
Mm.
he's getting my attention. And it's not a reach you and bite you kind of a thing, right? People go,
Mhm.
"Oh, I don't want a horse biting me." So they, pop the horse in the mouth or whatever. What I have learned with Bear, that is a connection. That
Yeah.
is how horses, or at least my horse, will signal to me. I know what that means. That means this connection piece. So
that connection. So like, was he like, so I had an experience once where a stallion that I used to ride, I hadn't seen him in a while, and I went to go visit him, and he and I literally stood in the pasture together for over an hour. For an hour, he just did this to my hand for an
it's
hour.
connection,
And I was just like melting. And then, yeah, so I think I know exactly what you're talking about. And I just melted into it and like just let him do it. And we stood there together for an hour or so, maybe more.
right? Isn't
Really
that, I mean,
special.
that's magic. I mean, it's just
Yeah.
absolute magic.
Yeah.
So what I then did, rolling kind of forward, I think it was
Hmm.
probably February of 22 then, I
Mm.
reached out to Dr. Susan Bay, and I said, kind of, this is what I have going on. My horse is at this ranch. He wants to be part of this, he wants to be part of this team that helps with the trauma victims and what have you. I said, but I don't know how to help him release the energy, and I don't know how to help him release the trauma. I want him to be able, I want to give him the opportunity to do it, but can you help us, right? Because of course there's lots of different people all over the place. And the thing about Susie is, Dr. Susie is, she does have a PhD, and she's done a lot of research, and she's amazing, and she does work with people all over the world, much like Celeste. And and as you kind of do things with people kind of all over the place, and just like Shaylee will tell you, when you're hooked into that collective, right, you start seeing the same thing, and you start hearing the same messages, and it's
Hmm.
from horses all over the world. So you can't say that they're not connected, because how
Mm.
else does that happen? It doesn't
Right.
just, right? So I mean, there's something real about, yeah, about all of that. And you might hear me say, and I'll probably say it again, I don't know all the rules. I just know what I've experienced, right? I
Yeah.
don't know how
Yeah.
it works. I don't know, like past lives and all that kind of stuff. I'm like, again, don't know the rules, don't need to know the rules. I just know what I've experienced, and what is, what has been made very, very true. It is very clear and true to me.
Yeah.
So we started working with Dr. Susie. Susie actually lived 20 minutes away from us, so she
Oh,
actually came to
wow.
the ranch, right? How crazy is that?
Yeah.
So we started working with Dr. Susie. And she just, yeah, she's awesome. I'm proud to call her a friend now. And she helped me understand Bear, and helped Bear better communicate with me. So it was like she was doing the translation. So
Hmm.
because, and she's got a background in training and has won world championships and everything like that, on top of having a PhD. So she's just a magical creature in and of herself. So doing the doing the work with her, and Bear wanting to be part of the healing team at the ranch there, we had our first opportunity in June of that year, 2022. So we had worked with Dr. Susie, and she had really helped us learn how to release that, and me to understand and read Bear, which is that's such an important thing. And I mean, it's awesome to work with Susie, because she'll have a conversation with the horse, like in her mind, but then also out loud, and the horse will respond to her every question she asks. It is crazy. And I mean, it's like, I have spent so many hours with she and Bear. It's I now can I mean, I know him, right? Of course, I've now had him for like 9 years or whatever it is. But it's
Yeah.
so cool, because I can see the translation, but I know what it looks like, and I can understand the responses and what have you, just from all the work that we've done with her.
Hmm.
So Bear in June launched into his first tranche of working with military veterans,
Oh,
and that would
wow.
have been June of 2022. So he continued to do that. I actually got kicked out of the program He
What?
did not. I got kicked out of my first time. It was hilarious because they were doing things more, I guess, from a psychotherapy perspective.
Mhm.
And I was trying to help the veteran that was working with Bear understand what he was saying to her.
Oh,
So I was trying to help her understand what he was doing and why he was doing it.
yeah.
And the folks that were leading the group didn't want me to talk to her. I was
Oh,
just supposed to stand there and hold the horse.
oh.
So, right, right. And so that was also a very interesting
Whoops.
thing because right, so I got kicked out. Boom, she's out. So that was also another really interesting thing about being part of that nonprofit. Bear and I don't follow the rules. We don't know what they are and we don't follow them. And so we got in trouble so many different times, which is so interesting now that I think about that. I guess I really haven't thought about that. But which is so interesting because it really comes back to, I'm going to go back to holding space.
Uh-huh.
It comes back to being present. It comes back to being aware. And, the hours that I sat in Bear stall, sobbing my eyes out because I know he's trying to tell me something, but I don't know what he's telling me. And
Mm.
then he's like, teeth on my shoulders, teeth on like my crown chakra on the top of my head. And and the thing that was crazy, and of course, then I'm like, why are you biting me? You're being such a jerk.
Oh
I'm like
no.
pouring my heart out to you, and you're biting me. Why are you doing that? And of course, I learned later, now that I know, I had stuff stuck,
Oh,
and he's
like
releasing it.
energetically.
He's releasing it.
Wow, that's
Right?
cool. Mm-hmm.
Right? Right? So, and it goes back to when I was talking about him, like on my hand.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
there is always a kind of this energetic spiritual aspect of interaction with your horses when they know you are listening.
Yes. Yes.
And you will have to hold space for a horse, your horse, the horse that you are in relationship with. You will have to hold space for them. You will have to have the patience and the courage to wait until they realize that you hear them. And let me tell you, once you give them a voice and they know that you can hear them, it is game on because you don't get to go back.
Mm-hmm.
You don't get to go back.
Mm-hmm. I've
And
experienced this. Yeah.
right, right,
Yes.
you don't get to go back. And I promised Bear,
Mhm.
I was like, okay, now that I know, I promise you, you will always have a voice. I promise you. I will always listen to you, even when it's hard, even when it's scary for me.
Mm-hmm.
And what does that look like as far as being scary? Well, when you ride Western dressage and you compete in Western dressage, you have to be ready to compete and go into the arena at a certain time.
Mm-hmm. Right?
And when you have a horse like Bear, you don't get to do anything fast. There is nothing that you get to rush through. There is nothing that you get to blow by. There is nothing. And, that's the other interesting thing I think that the Lord has really used Bear for in my life is holding space and then just bringing it all down.
Mm-hmm.
Because I have had a career in IT for over 30 years, and I'm a program director, and I'm like a get her done, baby. Let's lock and load. Going. I got an agenda. I got a project plan. We are rolling. I got milestones. I got deadlines. We need to deliver, right? But I can't bring that to Bear. He will not have it. No way, no way, no way. So that's when it gets scary. Because when you're trying to get ready to go in the ring and he's not happy with you for whatever reason, or you're trying to get ready for a lesson, or you're trying to get ready for a certain time, and you come in with your energy all rolling, think again, sister. That is not going to happen. I
So
mean,
how did you handle that, like in those scenarios when that
well,
started happening?
thankfully, um, thankfully, so if I roll forward to like 23, so 23 is when we went to Elements of Connection, right?
Hmm.
And so,
Yeah.
and that was in June. So, uh, in July, Bear had like a major transformation. Dr. Rachel Hart
Mhm.
Bellini, who is a good friend of mine, I had was in the area, so I had her come over and do some work on Bear, and of course
Mm.
he just like completely unfolded and expanded. It was beautiful. I mean, and he's beautiful anyway, but I mean, it just was this gorgeous thing that happened. And she gave me one of the greatest compliments I think of my entire existence. Is she was like, Jen, I have never worked on a horse that has had so much change and unfolding and unwinding in an hour and a half as I have with Bear.
Wow.
She was like, it was awesome. But she said, it is because of what you have done with him, for him,
Mm.
and given him. So he just
So he
needed
was
me
he
to
was
come.
ready.
Exactly. And that's exactly what she said. She was like, this was amazing because he just went, just kind of unfurled his wings type of a thing.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it was very cool. And then, I mean, then he made it very clear to me that he and of course I'm still, over these years over the, preceding years. So I mean, I still will do sessions with Lauren. I took an animal
Mm.
communication class with her,
Mm.
which was very cool. I have a very special mare who was with me for 22 years. She passed. I had to put her down in 20, and she actually was with Bear, so she kind of handed me off to Bear back in 20.
I see.
And she also comes through in the animal cage. So I've done some sessions with her, but now Lauren laughs because, and I have this magical baby dragon, and we'll get to him in a minute, but I have these three horses, and Lauren now calls them the triad because she's like, you can't talk to one without the other two showing up, and everybody has
Yeah.
something to say. So it's, again, you give the horses a voice. Won't
When
you,
did
Bear?
you feel like you started to be able to hear their messages yourself? And was that before or after you started doing some animal communication classes?
It was before,
Mm.
because as I think, as I had just said about Bear that next day when he said, I've known
Mm.
you for 1,000 years,
Right.
kind of a thing.
Did it just open up after that? I mean, like, did
It
you feel
pretty
like,
much did. It pretty
okay.
much did. And then AJ, who's my mare, same thing with her. I started seeing her. She shows up in the pink sky at night, when the sunset, and those really, really brilliant pink, almost fuchsia, kind of the color of your background. Or even what I've got ahead. See,
Yeah.
this was sunrise though. In that morning, I was just like, oh, there's my
Pretty.
girl. So, and here I'm now outside of Colorado, and in my new place, I also see yellow and black butterflies all the time. And that was actually one
Mm.
of the things that Lauren had said, AJ had said to Lauren, was about yellow and black butterflies. So that
Oh,
is also
wow.
her. So here they're everywhere. It's crazy. It's like I never saw them before, but it's like now in my new space, They're everywhere. And so it's like I said, it's kind of it's like once you open a door, open a window, it kind of keeps coming through. And it's interesting because I know the voice of the Lord. I know the voice of the Lord because it's I've known it since I was a little girl. And I'm not like a prophet or anything like that where I'm like spouting, like, oh, this is, but the Lord, I mean, I don't need anybody to be like my translator. It's
Mhm.
very, very clear. It's very, very clear to me. And with Bear has been very, very clear with me. He's very clear. AJ as well. One of the other things that AJ had said to me when Lauren and I had a session with AJ, the first session, was that the Raven was to be to be a spirit guide for me, like a totem animal, like a spirit guide.
Mhm.
Um, and of course, it was like as soon as that was kind of brought to the forefront, I just started to see them everywhere. And there's tons of them in Colorado. So I mean, they would just be, and I lived like in the city. I had them all the time. It was amazing. So I've got the Raven, right? Obviously, I have Bear and I have AJ. And so if I go back to 2023, getting ready. I decided to go to Worlds. Tara and Celeste both helped me get ready to go to Worlds. But this goes back to the being uh, listening to the voice on whether or not he wants to ride or not want to ride or do or not do. I mean, I basically would put out how do you want me to ride you? I mean, I had a bareback pad, I had a saddle, I had different stuff. And it was crazy because he would tell me what I could do and what I couldn't do. It's not like, oh, what do you want to do? What do you think about this? It was just his response when I would go to saddle him or when
Mm.
I would go to put something on him. He would be very specific about no, not yet, or no, not that, or what have you. And of course, working with amazing women like Tara and Celeste who totally understand and get that, it was basically Bear had determined I needed to have a lesson in something else.
Oh.
And so that's what we would end up doing is we would do
Mm.
something else. So I mean, I did that with Tara a number of times.
Mm.
And of course Tara gets it. So she's on it. So I'm getting ready. So let's fast forward to the week before Worlds before I leave to go to Oklahoma. And of course I've spent money and you've got somebody coming to ship him and you've got all of this going, right? And I now am super sensitive and super connected with him. It is like we're going to leave on Saturday and it's Thursday and I've come in to ride and I roll my saddle stuff down there on my cart and I'm there at his stall. So he's in a stall and a run. So basically what I ended up doing is I have I've migrated to I don't tie him. I
Mm.
don't cross tie him. He can ground tie, but I don't even really do that. I basically would get him ready in his stall and if he needed to walk away from me or whatever, he would do that, and then I would wait for him to come back.
Mm.
And when I would go so it's just how I roll now. It's like when I go to put a halter, I don't put a halter on him. I ask him to put his head into the halter, and he does. He either does or he doesn't.
Mm.
Same thing. I ride him in a bozal. We have dreams of being I have dreams of being a bridal, a finished, right? Let's clarify. He does not, right? But I would love to, my dream is to take him all the way to bridal horse. So we're
Mm.
on the journey to do that. So I ride him in a bozal. And he will stick his nose in the bozal. And I actually did a full session with Dr. Susie one time. I mean, it was for an hour where I was supposed to ride and have a riding lesson with her. He would not let me he would not let me put the bozal on. And it had to do with the fact that my energy was all jacked up. And so I would go to put the bozal on, and he would turn his head. So guess what you don't get to do? You don't get to go over and so give me your head. Let me put this on you. How would you feel if I came over there and I'm like, Jordan, I need to ask you something. And you're like, I don't have time right now, or I can't, give me just a second. And I came over and took your face and said, Jordan, I need to ask you something, right? You'd be like, Jen, take a pill, just chill out, right? So it's the same kind of thing, right? So I actually spent an entire lesson with Susie putting the bozal. At the end, I finally got myself grounded enough and got my energy under control. He came over and put his head in.
So he
I
was teaching you how to get
Yes.
grounded.
Yes.
Mm. And I think that's the piece where people miss that part of the lessons that you're gaining that may not be the initial intent, or it wasn't your
Nope.
agenda to do that today, but he had a different idea because he wanted to help you
Absolutely.
learn.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
that's pretty cool. It's pretty deep for the people that can wrap their head around it.
Profound, right? I mean, it's so profound. And
Yeah.
it's how I roll. And it's so funny because I think about my mare all the time now. I had her for 22 years, and I think about her and I'm like, oh, AJ, I tortured you for all those years. You know what? And she was awesome and she was magical. And, she's forgiven me for all of that. I mean, horses are so gracious, right? They're just so gracious.
They
And she was
really are.
always, I mean, she was just always so amazing with all of that. But it was just like,
Mhm.
I wouldn't have been ready for Bear if I didn't have AJ.
Mhm. Yeah.
And I wouldn't have been ready for Nero, my baby dragon, if I hadn't had those two.
Mhm.
So, all right. So we went to Worlds. We did well.
So
Bear,
you got to compete and he
I did. I did.
he was
I
willing
mean,
to
I
do
competed at
it.
a national level. I actually made it, and I made it to all my rides. All of that. So
And
it was
didn't you
interesting.
guys do pretty good? I can't remember.
Yeah, we did. We got a couple of top tens.
Mhm.
And from my perspective, it was the best show I had ever had
Mhm.
with him
Mm.
because the entire time I was there, I felt like I was just in this like bubble with him.
Mhm.
He and I were in this bubble. And there were some beautiful moments where he showed me things about past lives
Oh,
and
wow. At the
just
show? Oh, wow.
oh yeah. I mean, it was
Wow.
just and the thing that was interesting is here, you guys ready for this one? This is hardcore. In one of our sessions with Lauren, he had shown her how he wanted to be the only one in the arena and music playing and people clapping and everything like that. And I'm like, wow, listen to you, Mr. Fancy Pants. And so and the only way that that's going to happen at Worlds would be to do a musical freestyle. And so I said to Lauren, I'm like, so he wants to do a musical freestyle? And she asked him, and he was like, yeah, that's what I want to do. And I was like, okay, I don't even know how you know what that is. That's the thing that's so hilarious is in these animal communications, you're like,
Yeah.
I don't even know how you know what that is, but okay.
Yeah.
All right, we'll do
Okay.
it. So getting ready, I of course was working with Tara and Celeste, but then I also had another gal in Colorado that helped me design and put together. And Celeste's husband Danny did my soundtrack for me. So
Oh,
I had
very
picked out my
cool.
music, but then he put it all together. It was fantastic. So that's what we're getting ready to do. We're going to go do that. We're going to do that at Worlds. Okay, that's awesome. So I had to ride it I had to compete in the way Western dressage is you have to compete and get a certain score to be able to compete in the same class at Worlds.
Mhm.
So I did, got a 70. It's great. It was the first time he had done it, like being judged or whatever, and he did great. I mean,
Mhm.
it was cool. It was cool. So we go to Worlds. We had, I think we were riding two tests a day, and then the freestyle was at night. And he had done both of his classes that morning and afternoon, and then the freestyle was like at 7 o'clock at night or something like that. So I got him ready, rode him up. We were warming up in the arena and everything like that. And he was just not on. And
Hmm.
I was like, what? I'm like, dude, we're here. This is what you wanted to do. I've spent,
Right.
in my mind, you're like, I've spent all this money to do
Right.
this kind of a thing. But the thing is he was just, it, it was a no. And
Huh.
I, the girl that I was next to go in, and the girl was in there riding her freestyle, and I scratched.
Oh my gosh.
I scratched. And I had so many friends and they were like, and people were watching, because we live stream it and everything. And people were watching and they were like, what happened? How come you left? And I was like, Bear said no. He was just not, it was too much.
Hmm.
And I think it was probably, whatever it is, there's probably too much energy, too much whatever. It doesn't matter. But because I had the courage to say, you know what? He's told me no, even though I've done all this stuff because he,
He
gave me the
wanted to.
impression that's what he wanted to do.
Yeah.
And as soon as I mean, his, when a horse's ears kind of go to the side and you're like, okay, what's that all about? Because, I mean, there's some horses that do that, but then there's other, I mean, his ears were like to the side like that. So that's why I kind of think it was probably some kind of energetic thing or whatever. It doesn't matter. So as soon as I turned him to the out gate and we rode out of there, his ears went up. He let out like this big blow. And we just walked back to the stalls.
What do you think? Do you feel like you gained something from that
Absolutely.
with him? Like,
Absolutely.
how would you explain that to somebody that's like, what the heck? Because that's a hard decision to make.
Oh yeah, it was that was the perfect example of it being scary.
Yeah.
um, the it was just I knew he had and we had like a, I don't know, 7:30 ride the next morning, and so it was gonna
Mm,
be an early morning, and he'd already done 2 tests that day, and not that he can't handle that from a physical perspective. I
mhm,
know it was an energetic thing. I know it
mhm,
was. I
mhm.
just know. Because I mean, you're at a horse show and there's all these people and there's all these horses and there's all this stuff and it's just, all this stuff going on. So the next morning, he gave me the best ride of the entire show.
Well, do you feel like you can talk to him in those moments, like when he didn't want to go and be like, do you try to talk to him and say, like, dude, you wanted to do this. How come you don't want to do it now? Or
Well, and
like,
I mean, I remember saying, I was just like, is this really what you're saying? You're saying no.
mm-hmm,
And it was just like, it's too much.
mm.
It was just too
Like,
much. And I'm like,
like
okay.
he couldn't have anticipated that it was gonna feel like that.
Well, and I mean, I could have gotten in there and I could have ridden him and I could have made him do it.
Yeah.
But what am I accomplishing? Why? To just to so I could get, whatever score and get whatever ribbon? To me, it's way more important to listen to my horse.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
that was a huge thing. That was a
Yeah. Well,
huge thing.
that is very brave of you to do that.
It's what I had to do. I didn't, as far as I'm concerned, I don't feel like I had a choice. I
Yeah.
had promised him I would listen to him, and that's what I was getting from him, and so I listened to him.
Yeah. I want to ask you, so you had said that it kind of opened up and you started to be able to communicate with your horses after that first time Bear came to you. But then you did do some animal communication classes after that.
Yep.
So I know because you were in the one with Felicity with me, and then says you did one with Lauren.
Yep.
What do you feel like those classes brought to your toolbox or to your skill level?
again, I think it's an awareness, right? It's a discipline. It's kind of like once you start going down this path, you don't get to just like zone out and act like nothing matters, because everything matters.
Mhm.
Everything matters. It all matters. It's down to the details that it matters. You don't just blow by things. And I will tell you, so Worlds was like end of September. The last week in October, I'm driving to the ranch to see Bear. And all of a sudden I get like this hit. And I was like, okay. So it wasn't Bear and it wasn't AJ. And I'm like, who is that? And it was just like a first time greeting. It was like the first time you hear somebody's voice or something like that. And again, when at least with me, when the horses talk to me or when I hear them, it's not like I hear an audible voice. It's a
Mm.
knowing. You just know it,
Okay.
right? You just know it. Um, and all of a sudden I realized that that hit was the baby.
That you didn't have yet. That you didn't.
He was in his mother's stomach.
Oh, wow.
I
Wow.
know. I know. So I called Lauren on the way back home because she's on the she's on the West Coast, and I actually called her on the way, and I'm like, "So, have you ever heard of communicating with an in utero foal?" I was
Uh-huh.
like, "Is that even a thing?" She was like, "Wow, that's fascinating." I'm like, "Yeah, but can you help me out?" I was like, "Is that like a thing?" She was like, "Well, I don't know." Well, so my girlfriend had called me, a couple weekends before or a couple weeks before that to say, this mare who I love this mare of hers that she's a Dutch warm blood that she imported from the Netherlands, and I had met her a couple of times, and she's just a magical creature. And she also, when I think about it, she recognized me. That mare recognized me when I met her for the first time, and so I loved her. She's just a magical creature. And so Dawn was like, I think that this baby is AJ. So AJ is my mare. She was like,
Oh.
I think AJ has, she's got something to do with this baby. She goes, I think this baby is for you. And so Dawn and I have been friends for 20 plus years, 25 years, because Dawn actually had my mare AJ in training when we were doing saddle seats. So that's how
Oh,
long I've known
wow.
Dawn. Right. So
Yeah.
it's like all of
Yeah.
this stuff is like totally interconnected. That's why I say every little detail matters, and everything is connected. Everything is connected.
Mm, mhm.
So she was like, I really think this baby is for you. And I'm like, okay, well, so the baby just as time went on, and he was born in June of 24. So he's just about a year now.
Oh.
But that baby, AJ, in a session with Lauren, the same session that she told me that the raven was my totem animal
Mm, mhm.
or totem or spirit animal, whatever. Um, I had asked where she was living in the upper world in heaven. Was I had another gelding that I had lost to Potomac back in like
Mm.
2014. And I was like, is Forelli with you? And she was like, no, here's this horse that's with me. And so Lauren described him. She was like, wow, gosh, he's like this big kind of, she goes, he almost looks like a Frisian. So he's kind of got like this, he's like
Mm.
black. And I'm like, well, does he have any white on his face? Because I'm trying to figure out if it's AJ's dad or if it's Forelli. Or it's like, I don't know. She said, let me zoom in. So she zooms in. I'm like, I don't know how you do that, but okay. Don't know the rules, but apparently you can zoom in. And I was like, does he have any white on his face or anything? She was like, no. And she goes, oh, well, wait a minute. She goes, well, he's got a snip. He's got a snip on his nose. But then AJ said, watch what we can do. And they just spun around. AJ was super athletic in lifetime here. And she was amazing. And she and this horse, they were like running and doing like these piafs and flying around and doing just very athletic and what have you. And she was like, "Oh, I guess you guys are having a good time." And she said, "Well, yes, we are. Thank you for noticing." So, right? Crazy. So hold that piece and we'll come back to it. See, I'm supposed to write a book. I just don't know how I'm going to write it because it's like it happens all over the place, right?
Go start
So,
writing.
right? I know I need to. So that was like in November kind of a thing. And when the baby had started to reach out and I kind of, had some interaction with him and what have you. In January of 23, I actually did a session with Rochelle Stanley. If you guys know
Mm-hmm.
who Rochelle is, I know Amber and Shaylee work with her a lot.
I've
And
worked with
so,
her too.
yes. And she's awesome, right? Love Rochelle.
Mm-hmm.
So I did a session with her and she's the first person who said to me, she was like, "Well, Jen, you are a channeler." And I'm like, "I don't even know what that is." "Okay, I'm a channeler." She said, "But you're also an animal communicator." And I was like, "Oh, okay." I was like, "Really? I don't know that." She's like, "Oh, yes, you are." Kind of a thing. And Rochelle is not like an animal person either, right? I
Right.
mean, she's not like a horse person or a dog person or a cat person or something. And
Right.
it was just like, no, no, it's very clear. And of course, in my session with her, my horses came in very clear, as usual. And so that would have been January of 24. I then ended up with you in the Intuitive Equestrian with Felicity, which started kind of that February, right? It started the end of
Yeah.
February last year
Right.
type of a deal.
Mm-hmm.
And part of what we did, I mean, there were so many good things that, it's an awesome, if you guys get the opportunity, definitely do it because it exposes you to a lot of different things and it gives you insight into how things work and different types of healings and then doing it together and then of course just the whole experience of all of it is always really cool. And as I was rolling into that course, I then had a month-long trip in Europe
Mm-hmm.
for work, and I had a white bear that not my bear, a white bear that kept like showing up in different things. Um Cards, just like things off Facebook. I mean, it was just like this thing, okay? And it was all around a journey and what have you. So I had reached out to a gal who is a shaman out on the West Coast. Sanjay is her name. And I had brought up to her about I was getting ready to go on this journey. And so I wanted she makes like these really cool spirit animal like pouches and it has like all these different things in it and there's like an oil that comes with it and everything and it was just like I was just kind of being led that I needed something like this as I go on my journey. And so in the conversation I had with her, I'm like, I've got this white bear and it keeps showing up. And, the raven is one of my spirit animals and what have you. She was like, "Girl, that is a Kermode." And I'm like, "Okay, don't know what that is."
Yeah, yeah.
So a Kermode is a spirit bear. And they
Oh.
are actually, their habitat is in British Columbia in the Great Bear Forest, rainforest on the coast there. And so Sanjay, of course, told me all about the Kermode and their relationship with the raven and I was like, okay, this is cool. That's what I need. I think I need a bear. I need a bear spirit pouch to go with me. So she made one for me to journey with, which was awesome to go on my journey. And I now have this amazing drum, shamanic drum. So she made me a shamanic
Oh.
drum
Oh.
with the Kermode on it and the raven. So there's 4 black ravens and then this Kermode. So go through my journey into in Europe for the month for work, which was great. Lots of really interesting stuff. Um, oh, But before we go there, I gotta roll back. Sorry. I had ended up moving Bear from the ranch he was at with the nonprofit to, I was really feeling led that it was time for us to move on and do something else and go someplace else. So we ended up moving up to a ranch in the mountains at about 8,500 feet. Bear was part of a herd of about 50, and he lived on this ranch. There was basically a fence around the outside, and that was it. I mean, there was an indoor arena and a stall. He had a stall and everything like that, but it was like 88 acres, almost 100 acres.
Wow.
And so it was amazing, right? It scared me. Talk about scary. You can ask Maeve Bant. Maeve was on the phone with me. She totally talked me off the ledge. But it was super scary because it was completely different from all of my show and my very distinct kind of ways and what have you.
How to keep them,
And
yeah.
it was all about me letting go and becoming part of the earth there, because that high in the mountains, Pikes Peak is right there. It's just hills. There's a stream that runs through the middle of it. I mean, it's just all of these rolling hills, these beautiful stands of lodgepole pines and aspens and the trees. I mean, there's the one part, there's a forest. I called it the Narnian forest because it was just like Narnia. It was amazing. I mean, absolutely amazing. So Bear got to be a horse.
Wow.
I then took a step back from everything and just kind of brought it all down, right? So with that shift and change and what have you, I wanted to make sure when Bear left the ranch out on the plains that he was clear. And so reached out to Nicole Linke, who is a good friend of Maeve Bant's. So Nicole has worked with a lot of different shamans, so right up my alley, shaman girl that I hope someday will be. And so I asked Nicole just to connect with him and then see if there was anything that was kind of funky or anything that we needed to do. So she had reconnected with Bear, and what he was saying is, I am a shapeshifter. He was saying he was a shapeshifter.
Okay.
He then said, Jen is a shapeshifter. So she's like, you're a shapeshifter too. And I'm like, so shapeshifter. Okay. I guess I'm a shapeshifter. I don't really know what that means, but okay. So I go on my trip to Europe one of the weekends. In the meanwhile, I'm doing Holly Bennett's intro breath. So doing intero breath. There we go. Finally said it right. So I picked up one of the sessions I had missed and did this whole breathing session. It was all about water and what have you. And I'm sitting on a balcony in downtown Barcelona, the old part of Barcelona. It's all surrounded. So it wasn't like I was sitting outside, but nobody could see me or see down or anything like that into where I was sitting. That intero breath was crazy. It was absolutely crazy town because and basically what Holly does is she has you breathe through like all the different parts of your body and you just kind of explore it and what have you. Well, I'm breathing, doing my breath work, coming up my legs. I get to my knees, and then all of a sudden I am in Bear's hocks. I'm in Bear.
Okay.
And my knees are his hocks.
Okay.
And I'm like, okay, all right. I know it's Bear. And so I wasn't afraid, but it was just weird because it shifted. And then as I up my upper legs, I was still obviously in Bear. And then when I got up to like my pelvis, all of a sudden I am Omen. And Omen is the mare who is carrying my baby.
Oh.
Because she's black. And I could feel the baby like in my stomach. And I'm like, okay, this is wild. All right, we're just going to keep breathing through this.
Wow. Okay.
It was crazy. So I went from Bear to Omen. And then all of a sudden, I could see the baby. And I could see him from the perspective of he was showing me how he could articulate his spine.
Wow.
And I was like, wow, that's really cool, right? Check him out. He's doing this. All of a sudden, he turns into a dragon. And then guess who turned into a dragon?
You. Wow.
So it was like this really dramatic kind of thing. I mean, it's like I felt wings come out the back. I
All
felt like,
during your breath work, huh?
yeah, right?
Uh-huh.
But again, I'm not special. I'm not special. I truly believe it's just because I am so intent on being present and being aware. And the thing is that, I mean, I continue to check in back in with the Lord on all this stuff. I'm like, okay, I don't know how this works, but I'm just doing this. And I know you're going to stop me if I do something I shouldn't be doing or go in a direction I shouldn't be going. And I mean, he's told me time and time again, I will send to you the people that you need to help you on the journey to become who I've called you to be and what I've called you to be. And I will reveal mysteries and secrets to you that no one else has ever spoken. I'm like, again, don't know the rules. I'm just here along for the ride. So
Mm.
after that experience, I wrote it all out and, sent it to Holly and all of that. She was like, girl, you just have like the most. I'm like, I know, it's crazy.
Are
So
you feeling like you're on a path to becoming a shaman, or what are you?
something,
Mm.
something,
Mm.
and I don't know what that means, right? I don't, I have a calling. I mean, I have a passion for helping people understand their horses.
Mhm.
That's what is like my heart. Do I want to do this for people? Maybe only if it has to do with their horses.
Right.
I'm not a psychologist, a psychiatrist, a psychoanalyst. I'm not any of that, nor would I ever attempt to be, right?
Mhm.
I love horses, dogs, and cats. I don't want to do this for people. Will I help people if the Lord asks me to? Absolutely. Because you don't go through anything just for yourself. You always go through things because He's going to bring people behind you that need what you've learned.
Mhm.
I'm
Mhm.
sure you know that. You've
Yeah.
experienced that already, it just
Yeah.
in your life.
Yeah. So this has been a really interesting journey with you through your life. Beautiful conversation. Um, what if you were gonna, just from your experiences that you've had so far, if you were gonna give our listeners um a recommendation of something that they could do to just to help open up and create a more magical experience with their own horse, what would you tell them to do, or what would you recommend they do?
I think probably some of the most profound revelations and eye-opening experiences that I have had with Bear, and even now with Nero, because Nero's now almost a year old.
Mhm.
Um, oh, but let me finish one thing and then
Mm.
I'll go to that. So, Nero is the dark horse with the
Mm.
snip on his nose.
Right.
That is who Nero is. So, AJ had shown us Nero almost 4 years ago. And when he was born, he was exactly as she had described this other horse to Lauren.
Wow.
So, it's when I keep saying everything is
Yeah.
interconnected. Okay. So, I would absolutely encourage. I think the breath work that I have done probably with Holly with the Intero breath, um, because of the state that it puts you in, it makes you're very present, right? You're very present, and you're holding space for yourself to go through this journey, and it's very healing. There's so many things that it opens your eyes and reveals when you give yourself, it's taking care of yourself, number one, because it's not just about, oh, I want a better connection with my horse, which of course, if you're a horse person, who doesn't want that, right? We all want that. But you can't have that amazing connection with your horse if you don't take care of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of things that you may think are wrong with your horse, you probably need to look at the girl in the mirror.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know, certainly in my case, almost 98% of the time, me.
Yeah. I concur with you 1,000%. And I think that's well, at least what I'm learning is that's what the horses are here for.
To help us with. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what a gift God has given us in these amazing horses that He has placed in our lives that can show us what we need to work on.
Mm-hmm. And in such a beautiful way, too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because they're so gracious and so forgiving and just so amazing.
Oh, well, I love this. I love you. Thank you for
Oh, I love you too,
coming.
girl.
Is there anything else you want to add?
I'm definitely on my journey and hoping to do some shamanic studies next year.
Okay.
I'm going to be working with Dr. Tracy
Oh, good.
Rainwater. Yeah,
Rainwater. Yeah.
I know. Yes, I
Yeah.
know that you all are friends.
Yeah.
I'm going to be taking her animal communication course in August, starting in
Oh, very
August.
cool.
Yeah,
Awesome.
so I'm excited about that.
Yeah, I love her. That'll be great. Thanks, Jen, for having this beautiful conversation with me. And thanks, everyone, for listening. If you've enjoyed this podcast, be sure to like and share. And if you'd like to join us at the My Magical Horse community, go to www.patreon.com/mymagicalhorse. We look forward to seeing you next time. Namaste, friends.